Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the Giants fired DB Coach Jerome Henderson. It took about a week and a half, Justin, but we finally opened up an episode saying the Giants fired somebody. How are you?
Accountability. We did it. I'm doing all right. I first off want to say, I know our guy Snacks would appreciate if I said this. It's been a really cool week. Our guy Nicky Snacks was on Wheel of Fortune and he won. He appreciates everybody that watched and he appreciates everybody that followed along and wished him thanks. And I also just want to say I'm really proud of him. He won Wheel of Fortune. He dominated it. He was a showman. He was on DiPietro and Rothenberg this morning and he was a star on that. So I'm really proud of him. And he represented the New York Football Giants very well. I actually felt like a sense of Giants pride watching Nicky Snacks say that his life priorities are Giants family breathing. I'll give you a tidbit. Do you want a tidbit? Do you know what number 4 is?
It seems like he's great at everything but ranking Giants all-time greats.
Yeah, he wasn't a showman on that. Can I tell you what number 4 is? It's Giants family breathing, and he couldn't say this on TV, and I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. You want to know what number 4 is for him? Sex. Giants family breathing sex. Didn't make the final cut of TV, but I'm very proud of Snacks, and I love him. Let's talk Giants. How are you, Bobby?
I'm wonderful. Let's talk about Jerome Henderson and the Giants firing him, Justin. And they also fired their safety coach, Mike Trier. So the timing is definitely weird, happening 9 days after the season was over. And it's always tough to judge position coaches. So we're not going to come on here and, we'll talk about what I think Jerome Henderson was good at, what maybe he struggled at. Was he overrated, underrated, blah, blah, blah. What I will say, if there was anybody who really liked him for a long time, it was the Giants internally, right? With what they knew, their internal judgment. It's hard to judge position coach from the outside, but from the inside, they loved him, right? He was the only Joe Judge hire to be kept by Brian Daboll as a position coach. Was interviewed for their defensive coordinator job last year, and Jay Patterson didn't have that happen, so he was the only guy on that. And then he was promoted to pass game coordinator under a third defensive coordinator with the Giants, and Shane Bowen. So this definitely feels like a scapegoat move to blame the lack of development of Deonte Banks on him, but you also can't flat out say that because the results aren't great. They're not terrible, but they're also not great, and we'll talk about it from every which angle. It just seems like if you want Shane Bowen to hire his own staff, which is the internal message out of this, let him choose his own staff. You probably should have done that last year instead of keeping every position coach except for the outside linebacker coach who was Wink's guy.
And the internal message last week is that Shane Bowen's terrible, and the organization is begging for him to go somewhere else and take another job. So that was the internal message last week, and now the internal message this week is, we're going to allow Shane Bowen to pick his own staff. Awesome. I think people in the building are paranoid, man. And here's the optics of it, Bobby, right? Because I think the Giants right now, it's all about optics for them. Where they were, the Giants defense as a whole, just forget their secondary. Giants defense as a whole was 26 in pass deflections, passes defensed, 31st in interceptions, third highest QB rating allowed, and the 6th most plays of 20 plus yards. And it was very well known, throughout the whole season of that, the national story that would be going every week of the stat that the Giants are going X amount of weeks without an interception or a DB without an interception, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes sense. Like when the NFL, Ian Rappaport tweets out, Giants fired Jerome Henderson, the average NFL fan is going to say that makes sense because I remember that they had a stat that their cornerbacks don't get interceptions. That's the optics of it, right?
Yeah. And to kind of break this down too, Bowen may not like having someone who is not his guy as the pass game coordinator, right? He wasn't given that title by Shane Bowen. Bowen didn't come in, have a meeting with this guy and say, I need to make him my pass game coordinator. That comes from Brian Daboll trying to make Jerome Henderson happy, even though they didn't hire him for the defensive coordinator job. And here's the DBs rightly have been a huge issue in run defense. And Shane Bowen has blamed them in press conference, the DBs, on this, right? Now, I'd put that more on scheme and drafting bad run defending DBs because Phillips has made a name for himself basically simply for his run defense. Like I thought he was solid in coverage this year, but he didn't make any plays in coverage at all. Like he's known for his run defense. And
let me ask you a question: was this a problem with like the James Bradburys of the world, Fabian Moreau, like basically pre-Deonte Banks and Cor'Dale Flott? Do you think the Giants, and even Adoree Jackson before he kind of gave up last year, do you think the Giants in the past and their DBs have had like a run defense problem? I think the answer is no, right?
No, but they haven't been great. They haven't had, Darnay's was pretty solid at it. Bradbury was, hit or miss. Adoree had like a really good year in 2022 where he was like great at it. And then last year it fell off. But here it is, like it has been an issue with the DBs, especially giving up the corner. That I felt like that was an epidemic this year. And Andre Patterson, actually, I read this in the story, had a quote saying when he was asked about like the bad run defense, and he's like, "Oh, I think we've done a good job against the run." Talking about the D line. It's like I tell people all the time: you grow up in little league and high school. Oh, the run game is the front seven. It's the D line and linebackers. The NFL game isn't that way. They're making those guys on the perimeter tackle.
Yep.
They're going to make your corner tackle. They're going to make your safeties tackle. They're going to find a way to make those guys have to come up and make tackles. So our problem is not that we're getting blown off the ball. That's not our issue. We've just got to be better at it when we get our hands on the guy, getting him on the ground. And then Pat Leonard wrote, obviously that was not just a message sold by the D-line coach. It was coming from above him. So, like I said, the spin from inside the building is Shane Bowen wants to build his own staff. But like I said, it falls a little bit flat when the only staff change they made last year was the outside linebacker coach, and that was made to goat Wink Martindale into, quitting. They just kept, Andre Patterson, Eggs, the linebacker coach, and Jerome Henderson. I mean, there was more changes to position coaches on the offensive side that year, running back and tight end coach. I asked someone what they thought they suspect, and they're kind of like, they suspect Shane and Dable were pissed at him for how much he called Banks out on the carpet, because it definitely bothered Banks a lot. He felt singled out. And then I went and read a Paul Schwartz article, which you can find in team messaging, and that basically confirmed that in there.
Which goes to the whole thing of there's a lack of accountability in this organization. That Shane and Dable are mad at a position coach that's trying to hold a player accountable that needs to be held accountable. Yeah.
Now let's talk about Jerome Henderson as a DB coach, Justin. What I think he's been the best at is hiding weak cornerback twos. I feel like he's done his entire resume. The first year, Isaac Yiadom, right, made him a playable player at cornerback two. Adoree Jackson comes in, he has a career year at that position. Then Fabian Moreau, who was, didn't even make the Texans roster that year, was a practice squad guy. Deonte Banks last year in that cornerback two role.
Nick McLeod.
And Cor'Dale Flott this year. James Bradbury's emergence, he forget how much he grew that first year under Henderson and Graham. I think he's utilized different safeties. I think it's been a lesser talked about accomplishment with Henderson. It really helped groom McKinney to make huge improvements in 2021. And, he, extremely versatile. Logan Ryan came in mid-camp and changed the safety. Jabril Peppers was a playmaker. It was top 5 in all the playmaker categories his last year. Pinnock went from a Jets cut to a starting player. Julian Love got a contract, moving all over with him. So there's that. Now the issue, the biggest issue though with Jerome Henderson, and this is why here's the two reasons why you can't really say, oh, this is bullshit. How could they fire Jerome Henderson? One, no drafted player has really developed into this good player yet. None. No. There's been some okay players. We're going to do a cornerback review and talk about them. I know now people tout Andru Phillips and Tyler Nubin as these studs, and it's all right, well, let's wait and see. But he hasn't done that. And his passing defenses have never ranked top of the NFL. Let me go and they're, this past year they're 8th in yards per game, 29th in yards per attempt, and then 30th in passer rating allowed. And then every other year it was right in the middle, yards per game from 2020 to 2023, 17th, 15th, 15th, 19th. Yards per attempt, 17th, 15th, 14th, 18th. Passer rating, 17th, 12th, 18th, and then 9th last year. So I don't think he has this resume where Shane Bowen you have to keep him. But again, the Giants promoted him under Bowen and kept him after the Joe Judge staff and really liked him for a long time, and then fire him 9 days after the season. It's obviously going to raise some eyebrows, but we'll see who they bring in and what their resume is. It's always hard to judge position coaches, so we just try and do the best we can with the information we have. I like Jerome Henderson. Maybe got overrated and then a little underrated at times. I think he's a good DB coach, but he's the odd man out here.
Yeah. I basically, it's not even CB2 for me, Bobby. It's Giants bring in free agents, and Jerome Henderson just seems to work well with them. And then the Giants draft players, and they have not evolved as much or taken steps up that they've needed to, almost not like the free agents have. Like the free agents come in here and they over exceed expectations, whether you're a guy coming off the street, whether you're Nick McLeod coming from the Bills, whether you're James Bradbury coming from the Panthers, whether you're Adoree Jackson coming from the Titans. Those guys have over exceeded. Every free agent has exceeded basically their expectations. Even some of the DBs like Greg Stroman that's playing down the stretch, it's like, okay, they're making some plays and they're actually making some plays on the run. But the draft picks, the highly touted draft picks, and it's a shame that we didn't get to see Aaron Robinson. I still think Aaron, you should put a gun to my head. I think Aaron Robinson would be a good NFL player. We really haven't seen any of the NFL draft picks, Cor'Dale Flott and Deonte Banks being the big two, evolve all that much. I feel like there was one other thing that I wanted to say, and
Deonte Banks is the key. The key here because there's a lot invested in him. He is kind of like a swing player for them on how this regime is looked at next year. Because I certainly haven't given up on Deonte Banks as a player in the NFL. He's not an Evan Neal level type of bust.
And I'm going to give some stats in this episode that will get you, that I want everybody listening to this to get, like let's get on a little bit of a Deonte Banks train here, because I'm going to give 2 stats that are going to blow your socks off.
Oh, socks. Well, socks. So yeah, it's again not much more to break down from it. We'll see who they get as the DB coach. It's always hard to judge position coaches.
There could be more movement too, right? Like if guys go to different teams and there's only one head coach,
but they're all coaching all-star games. Mike Kafka's the head coach in there. Joel Thomas is an offensive coordinator in the Senior Bowl. Shane Bowen's a head coach in the Shrine Bowl. Gorgru, the linebacker coach, is the defensive coordinator in the Shrine Bowl. Drew Wilkins is the defensive coordinator for the other team, which is funny. They're all coaching these all-star games. I think they're gonna stay pat. Patterson. I don't know what his deal is with it, whether he wants to stay here or not, but I don't think there's any rush to get rid of him.
No.
Eggs is the ultimate just kind of do as I say type of coach. He doesn't ever say anything badly about anybody. And then the offensive guys are the offensive guys. So we'll see. We'll see who Shane Bowen brings in. I just wish if they wanted Shane Bowen to build out his staff, they should have let him do that last year when you hired him in the first place. Brought him into, where the stink on this franchise wasn't as smelly. It was still
if I had a feeling, Bobby, if they really want, if Shane Bowen really I don't like Jerome Henderson, I think they would have cut ties. But internally they liked him.
Right.
And now they don't.
But again, there's just a difference of you bring Shane Bowen in, all right, what does your staff want to be? And then or between that and, hey, Shane Bowen, here's your staff, which is what they did last year.
Because we want to protect mediocrity. That's what we want to protect.
Justin, why don't you talk to us about something before we talk about we go into our cornerback review?
I will talk to you about something because today's episode is sponsored by Corona. You know what I always try to be, a fan that never loses. And here's what I mean. We know that my team doesn't win every single week, and guess what? They're not going to win for a long time. They're not going to win. I hope they win a game in September. But even when they lose, I'm still loving the game because whether it's a big deep ball that the Giants don't throw, some third and short conversions, which the Giants don't have because usually they're converting third and longs, or just a great tailgate in the parking lot, there's always something to cheer for. And the best beer to pair with awesome moments, it's Corona. Corona's all about finding them the maximum amount of joy within every moment of the game. Win or lose at home or on the road, it's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come with it. So cheers to everyone who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. Corona, for the fans who never lose. Get yours at ordercorona.com for 21 plus. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Pure, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. You will be glad you did. Thanks to Corona for also sponsoring some of our tailgate streams, are some of our postseason streams over on JM Football. I think we're going to be live for both games on Sunday. There's two of the better games on Sunday. It'll be Jake, Shelfie, and I, and then Shelfie and I for the later game. So come check us out. You'll be glad you did. Corona.
You're glad you did. All right, let's get into the cornerback review, because I feel like this would make sense to have this episode when we're talking about the DB coach being fired.
I agree.
And so, Justin, it was obviously the worst year for the cornerbacks under Jerome Henderson, in my opinion. And just to start off before we get into Deonte Banks, I went into catches and yards allowed per game, and games where they had 20 more snaps. Deonte Banks, 3.5 catches, 49 yards per game. Really bad. Cor'Dale Flott, 3.2 catches, 24.7 yards. Andru Phillips, 2.9 catches, 30 yards per game. And then I did Adoree Jackson when he started the last 6 games of the year, 2.5 catches, 28 yards. So kind of guys in middling, and then Deonte Banks, who had a really tough season. And let's start with Deonte Banks. This is a second-year first-round pick who they traded in a 5th and 7th rounder to move up one spot, and it failed miserably for them. To keep it simple, Justin, Deonte Banks simply was not ready to cover wide receiver ones. They even gave him a lot of double help over the top this season, and it just did not work. He played 56 less snaps in 2024, so essentially one less game. This season, his stats were 67 completion percentage, 689 yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, and a 15% forcing completion rate. Last year, 57 completion percent, 10 points less, 644 yards, similar, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, and 11% forcing completion rate. So I want to just go through what his rankings are in those from 2023 to 2024 to keep it simple. Completion rate went from 24th to 50th. Forcing completion rate went from 46th to 13th, so made improvements there. Snaps per target, 80th to 63rd. Snaps per catch, 65th to 64th. So some improvements, but yards per catch went from 45th to 75th. The film I actually thought was better, much better than his rookie season for 95% of the play. He was much better at the release. Justin stayed connected way better. Did still struggle to lose leverage, from savvy wide receivers, but still didn't get totally smoked. The issue is he got wide receiver one treatment, meaning quarterbacks throw you even when you're in good position, and his ball skills suck. And this scheme still had him in mostly man coverage too, so you can't just blame it on that. They played 40% compared to 43% with a wing. The difference is you're not pressed up with your man, and the quarterbacks aren't forcing the ball to come out fast against wide receivers because you're bringing blitzes. So we'll break it all down, Justin. I think Deonte Banks is not significantly, but decently better than his rookie season. It's just the covering wide receiver ones totally exposed his weaknesses.
Yeah, I gave him the most underwhelming award during our award show last episode, and I kind of now regret it, because I looked at the stats and I talked about how average target separation got better for Deonte Banks from year 1 to year 2. The tight window rate, where quarterbacks are throwing, when they're targeting you, how often are you, throwing into a tight window when Deonte Banks is in coverage? That went up. But what I didn't look at is how that ranked among the NFL. I knew it went up, and I knew it went up a decent margin, but where does that actually rank in the NFL? And I found that out. Riq Woolen, DJ Reed, Deonte Banks. Those are cornerbacks with 400 snaps and the top 3 cornerbacks in the NFL in average target separation. It's Riq Woolen, DJ Reed, and Deonte Banks, which is crazy at average target separation. He's third, and that kind of matches the eye test, man, where you're watching it, and that's why Deonte Banks is so freaking frustrating, because you're watching it, and you're like, he's there! Turn your head! Make a play! Find the ball! 8th in the NFL in tight window rate when targeted as well, among cornerbacks with 400 snaps. 3rd in average target separation, 8th in NFL tight window rate. The problem is that, Bobby, I think the passer rating when he's targeted is 124, and in the NFL, he allowed the 4th highest in receiving EPA allowed this year. That's the shit that just drives you nuts. It's Deonte Banks before the ball arrives to the wide receiver. You really like him. And then Deonte Banks, when the ball is arriving to the wide receiver and he has to make a play on the ball, that's where you do not like Deonte Banks. And if he just takes that step up, it's like turn your head. Like, I don't know if there's if it's more, it is clearly more complicated than what we're making it out to be. But if he just does that one little thing, I think it could be so much better.
Sure. And hey, listen, but here at the part of this too is that, all right, if he turns his head and he's looking for the ball a little more, he may not be as tight in coverage as he was before, but I still think he'd be close. The issue there's this like, oh, he regressed so much from year 1 to year 2. I call bullshit. I think he improved. I think he was highly overrated his rookie year. Highly overrated in what he was. And there were signs in it with just watching the film, statistically. But look at when he covered wide receiver ones as his rookie year, he was terrible. I mean, he had a 4-game stretch where Adoree Jackson got hurt and they put him on wide receiver ones. In that 4 games, he gave up 25 catches, 400 yards, but he had 0 touchdowns allowed and 1 interception, right? So the touchdowns are what we mostly remember. And no one remembers those 4 games because there was a win versus the Commanders, the Jets game where they were running the ball the entire time. Then Daniel Jones tore his ACL versus the Raiders, and then you had DeVito's first game against the Cowboys. So it doesn't get remembered, and then they put him back on more cornerback 2 responsibility. And the other big difference negatively is he gave up a higher completion rate, but I think people will look, it's just touchdown interception ratio. So rookie season, 4 touchdowns allowed, 3 interceptions. Or sorry, excuse me, 2 interceptions that he had, which by the way happened in zone coverage. And this recent year, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But let's look at it though. Like his rookie season, he gave up 4 touchdowns. He got beat by Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell was a 7th round rookie. Jahan Dotson got him for a touchdown. Malik Heath from the Packers, and then DK Metcalf got him on that play where he lulled him to sleep. Garrett Wilson smoked him for 100+. McLaurin caught deep passes on when he covered him. CeeDee Lamb burned him when he covered him. Like, he was not as good as people made him out his rookie year. The touchdowns this most recent year, you get a slant to Justin Jefferson with no inside help.
Yeah, that was bad.
Slant to Amari Cooper with no inside help. And I did film videos on his mistakes on there. A Cooper contested catch where, one of those plays where he quit on. A CeeDee Lamb big play when that happened. A Cooper contested catch.
Which that was a tough play to make. I think Cooper just got him. Yeah.
And then Terry, but here's the thing is you got to make that play. You can't let him make that play on you. That's his issue. McLaurin got him on a really bad one. Remember the end of half, they ran cover 4 and McLaurin got him.
You can't have that.
And then in reality, it was only 5 touchdowns allowed because there was another McLaurin slant. And he gets beat on that slant again. It was supposed to be a switch coverage. They said after the game, Andru Phillips said, I was supposed to switch my responsibility and take on Terry McLaurin when they ran a slant. And I didn't. I got caught up in so it was really Drew Phillips' fault, but he gets credited for it. Again, I think he got better by a decent margin, but the ball skills didn't improve at all, and he had wide receiver 1 issues.
Yeah.
He was kind of overrated by the fan base, but you know what? Fuck the fan. The fan base doesn't make any decisions. The Giants themselves overrated Deonte Banks coming into this year. The run game issues were always there. They started to get looked at more. In fact, he had one of the best missed tackle rates this year, even though he's bad in run defense. The effort stuff is new, so that gets pointed out. Banks is not a cornerback 1. He may get there one day. I don't think he will with his lack of ball skills, even if he does get to where he's, the 20th best starting cornerback, cornerback 1 in the NFL. I think he's best suited in a cornerback 2 role where you're not having your ball skills tested so often. I'm not giving up on his player, but this is who Deonte Banks was at Maryland. Yeah. It's just in Maryland, his athleticism and not playing the best wide receivers in the NFL allowed for him to make up for it with just athleticism. So he's still athletic. He's still sticky in coverage, but he's just not a cornerback 1.
And it's a shame because, we mentioned all that stuff about not making plays on the football and this and that. But what follows him is the effort stuff, and also not being about it in the run game, and not willing to get your fucking nose dirty and play the game of football. Like, you got pads on, bro, use it. So it's a shame that, it's a cornerback that we drafted in the first round, that what you're hoping that guy has is at least an attitude. And that's what, coming in, that's what Deonte Banks was branded as. This physical press man corner that's going to get in your face and that's going to be physical and has this attitude and is cocky. Like, that's a guy that maybe can even be like a little bit of a leader in the secondary. And I can see, like, Deonte Banks, if the effort stuff is there, if he could turn it around, maybe he could be a leader heading into year 3 and year 4 for some of these younger guys, even if he isn't the best player. But if you don't want to be about it in the run game and you're dogging it on plays, you ain't going to be leading shit, man. You ain't going to be leading shit. And it's a shame that it's a first-round pick. You don't need to be perfect, especially when you're a back end of the first-round pick, right? You don't need to be perfect. But if you're not about it, forget the tight window stuff, tight window rate, average separation. The fact that this guy's not about it is probably the most damning thing about Deonte Banks heading after year 2.
Yeah. So again, I think he deserves a ton of criticism, but I just think he's a cornerback too in the NFL. He's got all the athletics, but again, like I don't think those ball skills are going to get a ton better. They may get some better, but he is wide receivers and it's not just the ball skills either, right? Like, it's not simple. Oh, it's just 95% of him is the best corner in the NFL, but the 5% at the end, he's bad. He still gets smart, savvy wide receivers kill him in leverage. They know how to win leverage against him. If I was his cornerback, the defensive coordinator this year, I would have said never cheat your leverage pre-snap, because anytime he cheated his leverage pre-snap, all the wide receivers would have to do is sell to the way he was cheating, and he didn't trust his leverage, so he would bite on it, and then they have these easy catches. Mike Evans got him on stuff like that. Terry got him on stuff like that. Jefferson got him on shit like that. So he's not a good corner right now. I hope he can turn into a good cornerback too. It's not getting him back to his rookie. If he gets back to his rookie year play, he's a bust, right? So if we're talking about regression, if he gets back to what he was as a rookie, he is a bust. I don't care who he's covering on the team. He's a bust if that's what we get him back to. We need him to be better than that. He can be a key piece, even if he's not a cornerback 1. If you have a cornerback 2 who's performing the way that Deonte Banks can, that's awesome. We don't know how the Giants will address that other cornerback spot, whether free agency or with their top pick in the draft. We'll see. But this is kind of who Deonte Banks is, and I hope he's in a better situation to get this right. We just talked about the Jerome Henderson shit. Like, he got it bothers me that Deonte Banks was so bothered that Jerome Henderson called him out for that fucking effort shit. Get better. It truly does.
Get better. Take it personal.
Yeah.
Hit someone. Yeah. Play football.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to know how many run stops he had this year according to PFF?
How many?
4. Like 1.2%. It's awful.
And it's not because he missed tackles. Like, he has one of the best missed tackle rates for corners in the NFL. It's just
he just doesn't tackle.
He doesn't play good run defense. He gives up the corner too often. He doesn't want to get down and take on blocks or anything. He's just he needs to take this offseason personally.
Yeah, be about it. That should be the phrase, really, for the whole team. But that should be the phrase, like, that somebody, if I were in Deonte Banks' ear, and if I knew more about football and how to be a corner, I'd be like, hey man, like, let's be about it this year. Let's be a football player this year.
Yeah. Justin, next is Cor'Dale Flott, the third-round pick out of LSU. Justin, you voted him your most improved player on the Giants. I put him second in that category. The listeners also put him second as well, even though, again, I tweeted out all the award stuff, Justin, and people are like, how did Mike McFadden win it 2 years in a row? And I'm like, thank you. It doesn't make sense that he won 2 years in a row. Also, I did feel bad that maybe we'll stop putting out most underwhelming.
Yeah, you did that?
I've done it every year, but now it goes it doesn't go viral, but now it gets a lot of views, and it's like, because we've always joked, like, congrats, I hope you never win this award again. And I'm like, maybe we just don't tweet out the most underwhelming.
Did you make a graphic of most underwhelming?
Yeah, make a graphic for
Oh,
everyone.
no, making a graphic is crazy.
Hey, took it away from Evan Neal back to back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Cor'Dale Flott. Improvements,
Yeah.
Gave on 26 more cover snaps, gave up 11 less catches, 105 less yards, one touchdown compared to 3 the year before, 1 penalty to 5 the year before. His forced incompletion rate went from 8 to 12%. The run defense is still bad, but it's not as much on display when he's on the outside. I think he set himself up as a good depth piece in the NFL. Shouldn't be a starter, but I do think he set himself up as a decent depth piece.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can live with that. If somebody is around for a long time as a depth corner, I think cornerback is one of the most important positions to have depth with. I can live with that for Cor'Dale Flott, who was the 81st pick in the draft, and he was basically drafted before he could even drink, which is crazy. He's turning 24 this year. But yeah, he basically doubled his hawk percentage on next gen, ball hawk percentage, excuse me. Tight windows force percentage, that went up 10%, and the average average target separation went down by an entire yard from 3.4 to 2.4. Talked a lot about these stats on the last episode where I gave him my most my first most underrated award, and the yards allowed went down, like Bobby said too. So yeah, I think Cor'Dale Flott in a pinch, and if he needs to, can go out there and, like you've said this line before, he wasn't the Giants pick on me guy this year, which it's very important in the secondary to not have a guy that teams can just pick on. We've had that in like an Antonio Hamilton in the past. Remember him? So I appreciated Cor'Dale Flott's growth this year. And, listen, man, he's 23. He could still get better as time goes on for sure.
Yeah, he's springy. He can move well. Obviously, now the size is always going to be an issue, and I think that's always should probably keep him as a starter role. Honestly, we talked about like he wasn't the pick on guy this year. That's where I am not like, oh, look at the improvements Flott made. Man, he can grow a little more and be a good starting corner in the NFL. I think Deonte Banks was his best friend because Banks was the pick. Cornerback one was the pick on guy. And then what did we say was like the concrete best thing that Jerome Henderson has done as his time as a DB coach?
Well, also hide CB2s,
Hide cornersback twos, like that's been consistent in his time here. Like that's been his best, like his clear cut ask you what's the best thing Jerome Henderson done? It's like cornerback 2 has never been an issue for the Giants. Under his tutelage, even fucking have Ryan Lewis out there playing cornerback 2 and, did all right. So that's where the size is still an issue. He's never going to be physical, but I think he can be a depth piece. Even that though, again, I think the size hurts him because you want your depth pieces to at least be good run defenders. And Flott is just never going to be do that. But one thing I have changed my mind totally on Flott is that training camp, I'm just not even going to talk about Cor'Dale Flott.
I'm not even looking at him.
He's like the worst training camp player ever. Like, first year's training camp was terrible. Just terrible. Second year training camp had the clear cut. He's our starting nickel. No, there's not even any competition for this job. Like, Darnay Holmes is here, but he's not getting that job. Instead, the Giants are like, you know what? We're going to put Adoree Jackson in the nickel and put Tre Hawkins as a starting outside corner because we don't trust you, Flott. And then last year, they're crying on Friday night of the draft, like, oh my God, we didn't get a corner. Now we got to trust Flott. He plays outside. I mean, he just got killed all of training camp. Yep. It was just the pick on guy. Played halfway decent. Justin, the next guy we got to talk about, he's strong. He's physical. You want to know why?
Why?
Because friggin' Huel. It's a new year, and we're all about setting goals and actually hitting them. What you fuel your body with matters, and that's why I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Huel. Spelled H-U. Let me not show you the back. Let me show you the front. H-U-E-L. You can spell that upside down. Huel is perfectly balanced meal taking the guesswork out of healthy eating. There's no prep or cooking. Just grab a Huel for your most inconvenient meals. It tastes amazing. I got a little tripped up there, Huel, because you're like for your most inconvenient meals, but in reality, it's saying like when you're on the go, and it's inconvenient to make a meal, Huel's good for you. It tastes amazing, like a milkshake. Choose from chocolate or vanilla, both low in sugar, and it's budget friendly with high protein meals under $5. One of my favorites is their Black Edition. Ready to drink, 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, all in one bottle. So, join the community of Hueligans with this exclusive offer for new customers. 15% off, plus a free gift with the code GIANTS at Huel.com. That's 15% plus a free gift for our new customers with the code GIANTS at Huel.com. Start your year off strong, unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel, nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters. Be glad you did. Now, let's talk about the curious case of Andru Phillips, Justin. Rookie third rounder out of Kentucky. Here's his numbers for the year, just the basic numbers. Gave up 41 catches on 50 targets, 82% completion rate allowed. 371 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 0 pass breakups, and a 0% force incompletion rate. Now, Andru Phillips had the lowest average depth of target on his targets of 3.3. He created some tackles for loss on plays that he gave catches on. Was a beast in the run game as a nickel defender, right? He had 7 tackles for loss as a corner. That's 4th most for that position. So it's like there's Phillips in coverage, Justin. Got to see more from him, right? He just doesn't, like another guy who, like you said, he had an interception this year on that Colts game, but that was like not as much his doing. Didn't have an interception in college. And I don't think his ball skills are ever going to get better to get interceptions, but we can at least get our hands on the football and force incompletions, right? Like, out of 97 defenders with 300 coverage stats, he was one of 2 without a force incompletion. He gave up the second highest completion rate for corners this year. And it's not that he just wasn't targeted either. He was 68th out of 97 in snaps per target, 91st of 97 in snaps per catch allowed. When he was targeted downfield, it was an issue, right? There's talks about him being outside, inside versatile. He's a slot only in the NFL. Downfield, he's just not able to. You saw in the Steelers game where they forced him to cover deep against their slot receivers. He gave up 115 yards and a touchdown. And I want to make this clear. He was a beast in the run game, right? That nickel defender. But when you had him as a tackler out in open space, it was an issue. Had 11 missed tackles, and they all showed up big. 37th highest out of 77 in cornerback missed tackle rate. So not crazy high, but the missed tackles mattered, right? Commanders game took a 3rd and long stop and turned it into a first down where they scored a touchdown instead of punting. The Bucs made like big plays out of it. So Phillips, I thought it was a good rookie season. The run defense was excellent. But do need more of him as a coverage player in that nickel defender spot. They didn't give him a ton of responsibilities, and a lot of it is just kind of giving up the underneath stuff. But I'd like him to grow and be a player that has more coverage responsibilities than what they gave him.
Yeah, Bobby, if you look at this stat line, I joked to you before the show. If you look at this stat line of 1 interception, 1 pass deflection, 2 forced fumbles, a sack, 71 total tackles, and 7 tackles for loss, you close your eyes and you're like, oh, that's a linebacker.
Yeah, that's our linebacker too right there.
Yeah.
Which he does play like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so really, like, from a physicality standpoint, I was thrilled. Like, thrilled that, like, oh, that's what Andru Phillips was branded as in college. Like, this guy's going to be physical. This guy's going to be a force in the run game. We knew that's exactly what we needed out of a nickel corner, and then, boom, he was. Like, him, Drew Phillips, and Tyler Nubin, 2 of the best run defenders in the secondary that we had on the team. And if you look at his slot numbers, actually, I want to stick with the run defense for a second. In the NFL, he had 10 run stops total in this year. That was good for 15th out of all corners in the NFL with the 20% of 565 snaps. So that's really good. And he didn't even play like a ton of snaps compared to some of these other corners, and that total run stops is more of a raw stat rather than a rate. His slot numbers in terms of snaps per reception is pretty decent. Out of the 22 corners that qualified, out of half of cut in half of 522 snaps, he was 7th in snaps per reception, 7th best in the NFL out of the 22 corners that qualified from the slot. And there was a lot of other corners that had way more snaps than he did. So, I another guy that you want to see more ball production out of. The times where he got beat, the time where he gets beat, it was kind of beat bad. But overall, for a player that, hey, left hand up, who are we, the Commanders? I did not like Andru Phillips coming in, and I don't want to say that he proved me fully wrong yet, but for year one, I got to shut up because I like Andru Phillips as a player. Yeah.
So, there's things he'll never be an outside corner, right? Just doesn't have the ability to hang with guys down the field. And any time they did put him in a man coverage role where he'd be pushed down the field, which slot receivers aren't doing that too often, he struggled. I thought the Steelers game was the biggest example of that. And in this defense, it was basically just like kind of cover curl hook, cover the flats, which is for a rookie nickel corner, like you kind of want to not put more than that on their plate. But I do want to see him be someone you can put more coverage responsibilities on just from that nickel spot. He won't play on the outside. The other thing, like you said, the run defense, good. It's going to stay good. Big part. Nickel defenders are a huge part of run defense. Good on Jerome Henderson for letting him do that. But the open field tackles, that's got to get cleaned up, man, because he gave up big plays doing that. That's one of our worries coming out of Kentucky. His scouting report that we did, Justin, was very funny because it's like great physical run defense, bad tackler. Bad open field tackler. It's like sticky man coverage, but can't make a play on the football. So obviously has things he needs to grow on, but I think it was a pretty damn successful season for a third round rookie corner. Yeah,
I agree. I'm just interested to see what happens in year two because we always have the characteristic as fans to overrate the rookie seasons, and if they put more responsibility on on his plate coverage wise, do teams start to target him more? Which I think in coverage, teams can if they want to. Like I think you saw against the Steelers, that was I think one of his worst games coverage wise. I think if teams want to commit themselves to target Andru Phillips, I do think it may kind of work out for them, but it also could bite you because he's a physical player and maybe he can make a play on the football. He'll get your slot wide receivers in the backfield and tackle them if you want to throw them screens and whatnot. So I think you got to, he has his strengths as a player, but also he has his weaknesses as a player.
Right. Let's do Adoree Jackson real quick. Kind of was like the best corner on the team in coverage wise.
Yeah.
He started the last 6 games of the year, gave up 57% of passes, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns in those games, 0 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. Like out of the 4 cornerbacks who played, the 3 we just talked about in Adoree, had the best completion rate, best forcing completion rate, best snaps per target, best snaps per catch, best yards per catch for the outside corners. Obviously, slot corner is going to be better in that category. Was kind of the best, yet was not as good as I thought he'd be, Justin. He was someone we talked about in the offseason, been like, man, bring him back for cheap. It makes you feel a lot better about that cornerback 2 role, which he never took the starting job until the end of the season when Deonte Banks and other got injured. And other guys got injured. I know last year was a down year with some of the tackling effort stuff, but I actually thought coverage skills, he was not the same player. Now they threw him in a lot of weird scenarios, Justin. Remember, the first half of the season, he didn't play.
No.
And Flott wasn't playing terrible, and it'd be like third down, Adoree Jackson go in.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because it's not like Adoree Jackson's or Cor'Dale Flott's a first, second down corner because he's bad at run defense. Was kind of put in a weird situation. Did all right at times, other times where he gave up plays, had some penalties, some BS penalties, but won't be here. I'm pretty confident in that, Justin.
No. Yeah, he's done.
Going next year, but I thought for the minimum contract they gave him, I thought he did his job.
Yeah,
like I said, he was the best cover corner on the team.
Yeah, it did fine. I just thought of the meme. You know that little Sasquatch meme of he's like pointing at himself, being like me.
Yeah, yeah.
The little Sass meme of him pointing at himself. That was almost like Adoree Jackson when the Giants called him. Do you want to come back? And he's like, me? Who you basically kind of like pushed me out of here? And
they hated him.
Yeah, they hated him. And they're like, oh yeah, come back, come on back. Same DB coach and everything, and reuniting with Shane Bowen, who maybe they didn't like each other in Tennessee. So yeah, very, very strange. But yeah, Adoree Jackson filled the need. Vet minimum contract. Good signing by Joe Shane. Got us through a year.
Hey, he's one of the longest tenured Giants.
Yes.
Now he's gone. Tre Hawkins, last guy we'll do about. He played one game, had an interception, a pass breakup, some run stops, and broke his back because his tackling technique is fucking terrible.
Yes.
Hell of a season for Tre Hawkins.
Yes. It's almost like, do you think we're going to compare the Tre Hawkins game against the Saints? I actually think Tre Hawkins had a better game against the Saints than Aaron Robinson did against the Dolphins. Where he covered Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Like, wow, look at these plays.
Tyreek Hill wasn't on those Dolphins teams.
Oh, excuse me.
Don't give Aaron Robinson flowers he doesn't deserve, buddy.
That's true.
Here's a stat. Out of 176 cornerbacks with at least 40 coverage snaps, he had 41, so that's what I had to make the flyer.
Yep.
He had the 5th best passer rating when allowed.
Dude, he was a beast. He was a beast in the run. It's like, this is the physical Tre Hawkins we were waiting for, and then he broke his back.
Tre Hawkins, if he was going to play one game, he picked the best game to play because it was the game where the Giants were like, Dexter Lawrence is gone. We're going to go all out to stop the run. And then, can you name me the Saints starting wide receivers from that game?
No, I cannot.
It was
you can't even.
What? Kevin Austin Jr. from Notre Dame from a couple years ago.
Wasn't there a former Giant, too?
Cedric Wilson Jr. You're thinking of Deonte Pettis. He wasn't playing that game. And then one other guy. But they had no wide receivers. But hey, he had, he broke the interceptionless streak for the team.
Yep.
Justin, I just, as we finish off this episode, I just had a very sad moment.
Okay. I also have a question to ask you, too, as we wrap up.
I don't count Cade Knox because he's like an analytics guy. He's not actually coaching anybody. He's just kind of doing trends and shit.
Okay.
Jerome Henderson was the last guy from the Joe Judge staff.
Wow. This is... a torch has been passed.
That's sad. It's very sad. Maybe we'll bring back somebody.
You know what? Credit to Joe Judge and his staff. That's how you know he built a solid staff in parts. The defensive staff. That's how you know he built a solid defensive staff.
Yeah, Brett Bielema was our outside linebacker coach.
Yeah.
Can you name? It's like his entire staff had been college head coaches at one time. Running back coach was Burton Burns, who was at Alabama all those years. Wide receiver coach, they kept Ty Tolbert because Darius Slayton had a good rookie year, so they forced him on him. Tight end coach, Freddie Kitchens. He's been a head coach at times. He's been an NFL head coach. O-line coach was Mark Colombo. Then he got fired. Now Rob Sale, who's the offensive coordinator for the Gators.
Forgot about Googe.
D-line coach Sean Spencer, who I think is with Texas A&M now. He was with Penn State and then went to the Gators. Linebacker coach Jeremy Pruitt, the Tennessee head coach. The other linebacker coach, Derek Dooley, was another Tennessee Volunteers head. He had 2 Tennessee Volunteers former head coaches.
That's right.
On the staff. And then Derek Dooley was the tight end coach. Who was the other? Fuck, his name.
Because Freddie Kitchens became like the run game coordinator.
Yeah, Derek Dooley. Who was the linebacker coach who was a Tennessee head coach? That's gonna drive. Kevin Sherrer
had a bald head, probably.
Kevin Sherrer, and then Jerome Henderson, the DB coach. So.
Also a bald head.
Hey, and they also had Jody Wright, who's a head coach at.
Yes.
What's the
Villanova?
No,
that's Jay Wright.
I want to remember what. Let me look up Jody Wright's Instagram. Where's he the head coach at?
5.
Murray State.
There you go.
So, what was the question you had?
The question I had, and I maybe we can end off our positional reviews with this question. What's the level of investment you would like the Giants to take into this position heading into next year? Like, do you want them to, in free agency, are you looking for a cornerback one within the first 3 rounds of the draft? Are you looking for a cornerback? What's the level of investment you want the Giants to take this position?
I don't know if there is that guy in free agency, but like, I'm an Abdul Carter guy if they don't go quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Hunter would probably be number 2 to Abdul Carter for me.
Okay.
Talk about ball skills.
Yeah. Hello.
Well, yeah, I think you'll be all right there with the kid. So Travis and I am clear Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter, like clear. And I know like there's probably like a 55-45 split probably in favor for Travis Hunter. And I want to tell those people they're wrong, and I can't, but I can just like make the point for like Abdul Carter.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, if it's their biggest free agent addition or their number 1 draft pick, got no problem with them doing that.
Yeah, for me, again, I don't know where I am in the draft yet, but I am always just a huge believer in bringing in veteran corners. It usually just works. It usually just works, right? Like, I don't understand why more NFL teams didn't look into a Kendall Fuller, who played well for one of the worst defenses ever in Washington, and Jack Del Rio, and then he goes to Miami, and I think he's had a solid year. Like, these guys just work. So that's what I would do. I would look to free agency, and I would look for whether it's value deals. Like Darius Williams is a guy that I know that they were rumored to like, guy that got a ton of pass deflections for LA, and then I think he went back to Jacksonville, or vice versa. I think it's vice versa. So yeah, I want to look to free agency. I want to get 1 or 2, maybe even just 1 corner to spend a little bit of money on, and then even if it's a CB2, and then Cor'Dale Flott kind of goes back to that depth piece. That's where I'm at with it. So
yeah, I just don't know if that guy's in free agency unless you're getting a guy who's like 28, 29 years old.
Which I'm fine with that. Like, I want a vet. You know what I mean? Like 28,
but you don't
29,
want to get
a 3-year deal.
28, 29. You don't want to get 28, 29-year-old corners. They fall off quick. You want to get the guy coming off his rookie deal whose team didn't resign.
I mean, Adoree wasn't Adoree around that age?
No, Adoree was like 24, 25.
Yeah.
Adoree's like that age now.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like Adoree, I think Adoree may be 30, right? And we're like thinking of him as like 33.
Adoree's like 29 years old.
That's crazy,
right now.
but it's like in my head I think he's 33 because
he just turned 29.
It's like, all right,
you get the guys off if you sign the guys coming off their rookie contract.
Yeah.
Eli Apple's fucking 29.
Wow.
But hey, listen, I'm an Abdul Carter guy. Fucking Travis Hunter being on this team would be sick. So, I know there's a fear of like the Giants have had awful luck drafting corners. Not luck, they've just been bad at doing it. But that's not going to stop me from wanting Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon or
right.
Fill in the first round corner who's worked out well. Sauce Gardner. Like if the Giants had pick 4 in the 2022 draft, I wanted Sauce Gardner. Unfortunately, they had pick 5 and Sauce Gardner went pick 4. Have you noticed like people are like, oh, Sauce Gardner, man, really fell off this year? And it's like, he's actually still pretty fucking good. He did get called for a good amount of penalties. That's an issue. But like, he still was like a clear-cut cornerback 1 in the NFL.
I'll take him.
Yeah, he's still really good.
I'll take him.
He didn't, do his like historic level of year 1 and year 2 in the NFL. No, he's a weirdo on Twitter, and that hurts his image when the team's losing. But he's pretty damn good. So we'll see. Research Rick talks about the PPE bonus in the chat. The Giants have a lot. Will they be cutthroat with those guys this year? Flott is one. Bellinger's got to be one.
They have been in the past, right?
Belton might even be one. I don't think Belton would. Research Rick is going to put in the chat right now.
Darnay was one that they were pretty cutthroat with.
But now we're getting Joe Shane draft picks.
Oh yeah. Slayton, the first year.
Yeah, so McLeod was it's not the same as McLeod. He's a restricted free agent or
a top 100 pick gets that escalator like that. That's curious to me. I mean, I have to fully look and see how all this shit works. But I mean, he was the 81st pick in the draft. Like, these guys are expected to play.
Yeah, but you forget how cheap these guys' contracts are at the end of them.
Yeah, that is true.
All right, that's an episode. We will see you guys on Tuesday. We got 2 more episodes before we get to Alabama, so maybe we'll try and throw a mailbag in there next week, and maybe we'll do wide receiver review with the other one. We'll let you know. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.